So I am out in the garden and I figured we would do our first garden tour of the season. I was coming out here to actually turn on my sprinklers and it looks so cloudy, but when I pulled up the weather, it says it's not supposed to rain and it's sunny outside, but it's definitely cloudy, and to me, those look like they have water in them, but we'll see. I didn't take y'all along with me while I planted everything. I didn't think that y'all wanted to watch somebody stick every single seed into the ground and plant every single tomato plant, every single pepper plant, etc. So I didn't take y'all along with me while I planted everything. So this is gonna be our first garden tour where y'all get to see everything that I have growing. Now, there's not a lot going on because the plants are still very small, but I'm not gonna do this every week until I start harvesting and things like that. Y'all will kind of have to tell me what y'all want me to update y'all with and what y'all wanna see throughout the season. I did not start this at the beginning last year, so I don't really have a plan for this year. We have had a lot going on. We had the county fair last week, and then we have mayors that are having babies, and I am having to get mare's bred the next few weeks. So we've had a lot going on. I do know that I have to fertilize my tomatoes and my peppers today, and I have one squash plant that looks questionable, so I'm gonna fertilize it as well. I'm just gonna use fish emulsion this early on. You know that I threw the granular fertilizer into the ground, so I'm just gonna come through and fertilize everything with fish fertilizer today. This is my in-ground garden this year, and not much has changed from last year. I did add the arched trellis this year and the trellis down the center of this bed. And we did have to rebuild these two because when the hurricane came, it crushed those, so we did have to fix those. This is the small cottage garden that we started a few weeks ago. I started it with y'all. This is the lemon squash. It is nice and healthy. This is the sweet alyssum, nasturtiums, zinnias, and borage in the back. So they are nice and healthy. And I actually think that they might be getting ready to, I'm not sure if you guys can see this. They are getting ready, I think, to start blooming. And the lemon squash will hang over the edge. It gets viney and grows lots and lots of squash. It's one of my favorites. I haven't really showed y'all this bed a whole lot in videos. I did do a few shorts about this bed. This is my garlic and onion bed. I was supposed to have onions in that bed over here, garlic in this bed over here, and I was gonna plant squash down the edges and just have the garlic and the onions in the middle since they stay in the ground so long, but because of the hurricane destroying that one, I had to wait for it to be rebuilt. So we just improvised this year, threw all the onions and all the garlic into this bed. These Fedora onions, you'll notice this one's a little bit smaller, but most of them are pretty good sized onions this year. But these are the Fedora onions from Haas, and I think next year that is the only variety that I am going to grow. They are a early bulbing onion. He actually just did a video of this on YouTube if you go follow his YouTube account. And they have been super prolific for me. There was an issue with the Texas Super Sweet, and you'll notice right through here, like a lot of them didn't survive. There's like a couple that are just now starting to bulb, but he said that these are a later bulbing onion. But the starch just did not survive. And there was an issue with shipping. Like if you go to their group, it was a whole ordeal. They arrived mushy and they just did not survive. And so I went and bought these Texas Super Sweet from the local store and planted them. So these are a little bit behind the onions that are in the front. And I planted most of these around like I think I planted the first ones in November, and the second set was probably like closer to December, January. I honestly can't remember. And then I have several varieties of garlic. I cannot remember the varieties off of the top of my head. I did pull one the other day, and they are starting to really bulb and get bigger. So we'll be pulling those, I think, in the next little bit because they're starting to yellow and turn brown. So as soon as more leaves yellow and turn brown, it'll be time to pull all of that garlic. On the end of this bed, I came in and put some straight neck squash just because I had some extra areas that needed filled in. And so those have popped up as well. This is a test batch of garlic. I saved all of my garlic bulbs from the plants that I planted last year, and I decided to put them in this bed just to see if I saved my garlic bulbs year after year, is this going to produce as well as the garlic that I buy from Keen or a garlic supplier? So we'll see. This is a small bed that for now just has a marigold in it. I threw a few gold prize squash in there, but they haven't even popped up yet. I think it was just like 2 days ago. It really wasn't that long ago. On this trellis, I am growing birdhouse gourds this year. I had a hard time deciding if I was going to grow loofahs or birdhouses this year, and I just decided to go with birdhouse gourds this year. I skipped growing them. No, I did not skip growing them last year. I grew them last year. The hurricane came and blew down the vines, and so they were destroyed before they ever got to produce. So we're going to do birdhouse gourds again this year. These little pollinator beds still look kind of pitiful. The salvia comes back year after year. I cannot remember what the red is. I bought it out of the clearance section at Lowe's, but I have some zinnias, I'm not sure if I planted cosmos in this, some nasturtiums and some alyssum planted in these as well. And so you can see that the seeds have sprouted, but they just don't look nice, big, and healthy quite yet. So this bed is kind of like my catch-all bed. If I did not have somewhere to put something specifically and I had started the seeds, I threw it in here. You'll notice that there's 2 tomato plants. That is a porterhouse and a bodacious. These are both indeterminates. They're the only 2 indeterminates that I grew this year. You'll notice a calendula, or 3 calendulas, 4 calendulas. These are little okra plants that I had started and I had nowhere else to put them, so I put them in there. There's some nasturtiums. There's some little carrot seeds that have decided to sprout, and I direct sowed some type of seed in here. I can't even remember at this point. Some gomphrena and something else. So this bed will be interesting, but it was just a bed. Nothing else had a place, so it ended up here. This is going to end up being my favorite bed. You'll see all of these squash and zucchini plants that have popped up, and they're nice and big. You have all of the cucumber plants up against the trellis that I started. And these are the borage that we had started. And I have some bush marigolds between each squash. And I can't remember off the top of my head what I planted in each place, but I can link that video and y'all can go back and watch which squash I planted at what place. This is a okra not an okra, oh my goodness, a garlic that obviously got left behind last year and has sprouted up, so I've just kind of left it. It'll help deter some pests. And then these are the zucchini plants down this side. I'm telling y'all, Cocozelle does not like me. This is my poor pitiful little Cocozelle. It is still hanging in there, so maybe it'll come back and survive. And then this is the which one is this? The Romanesco. Anyway, something Romanesco zucchini, costata Romanesco zucchini, and it has very yellowing leaves. So I'm gonna hit this with some fish emulsion. I'm just gonna do a foliar feed and hit these leaves with some fish emulsion. It's like the only one that's really struggling. I also added in some morning glories to this trellis just to give it some more pollinator attractors while we're waiting on this side has some as well. Some morning glories, and this is a birdhouse gourd. So this bed is going to be my main perennial bed, and so I'm trying really hard to put herbs and things in here. I originally had herbs in this little one last year, so you'll see my giant oregano. It's a bush, and I've already harvested like a whole mason jar full of oregano that I have dried. I have the thick Italian parsley and then the curled parsley, and I've harvested a giant mason jar of this as well. And then yesterday I was at Tractor Supply and I grabbed a lavender plant. My daughter likes to make tea, so I wanted to get her a lavender plant. It more than likely will not survive our summer here, but I try one every year. It does better in the winter. So like I said, this is kind of a perennial bed. So I have the artichokes, and I don't know if I've shown them in a while, but they are giant across the back. And like I said, they're perennial, so they'll come back every year. I have chives right here. I have cilantro, and then I have 3 herbs that I started. I think this is an oregano, a rosemary, and I don't know what this one is because I did not label them when I started them. Who knows why? And then this is another salvia. It's either white or red salvia. We have some cosmos popping up, a marigold, and a chamomile plant. And then up under here, there are some mixed in with weeds, some daisies. And then there is some alyssum up under there I planted to hopefully attract some pollinators. This is a calendula plant again. I transplanted some of the large bushy oregano back here because it was just so big and taken over up there. So I put some of it back here as well. This is my giant sunchoke bed. I probably overfilled it and put way too many sunchoke tubers in here, but it is nice and full, and it'll look really cool when it's all sprout. They look a lot like sunflowers to me. This is another one of those pollinator beds that the seeds that I direct sowed are just starting to pop up in. So zinnias again, I think cosmos maybe. This is a salvia that has come back year after year. I think this is its second year. I think I added these beds last year, so second year. I had dragon fruit planted in this pot, and when the hurricane came and it blew the roof off of our barn, that roof tumbled all across this. You'll notice that the fence is broken. And it took out that bed, it dented these, and I had dragon fruit in here and it totally uprooted it and demolished it. So this year we're planting squash, and I think I ended up coming back and putting in the patty pan squash in this. This is alyssum, it is the purple. There's some nasturtiums in here, and then of course marigolds. I just kind of put random things. These 3 beds a week ago I had no idea what to do with. I posted on the row by row group that Hoss has, and I was like, give me all your wild ideas for things. This is what I have planted and I need some more ideas. Nobody had any crazy cool ideas, so I ended up putting squash and zinnias and marigolds in each of these. I have the Gourds to help water and keep these nice and moist this summer. Zucchini and squash. I said I wasn't going to grow enough to feed the entire neighborhood this year, and I did it again. So any little random spot, it's just so easy to throw a squash seed because, I mean, they don't take up a ton of space. They sprout really fast. So any little blank spot, I've thrown a squash in. So I'm going to be able to feed the neighborhood with squash again this year. These are 2 of my favorite beds, and I think it's just because the plants are bigger, they look more full. These are some rabbit pellets from my bunny. It's paper pellets that we use in his litter box. So this is the ground cherry. This is the chamomile. And this is a black beauty eggplant. And then I have the little nasturtiums around the front of this bed. This bed has the long purple eggplant. This is cinnamon basil. And this is a marigold. And then of course a couple of nasturtiums, because that's always what I do around the front. So that is everything for my raised bed garden. So now I'm going to take y'all to my in-ground garden. This is only my second year with an in-ground garden, but I think that I've made a ton of improvements from last year. And even in just the 2 growing seasons, I learned a lot. So let's get into what's different and why I think it's better. And I promise those are going to dump rain on me, even though they say there's no rain. If you were here for my fall garden, you know that the goats got into my garden and they ate every bit of my brassicas. So I have added a Premier One electric fence to hopefully keep goats, and we don't really have a deer problem here, but just in case, I now have the Premier One electric fence around the complete outside so that nothing can get in and eat my garden. So let's get inside and see what we have growing. So last year I had my rows running back and forth this way, and the problem with that is that when the runoff comes from the top of our property is very hilly. So the runoff comes and it runs down here, and it would run through the rows, and they created like a terrace effect, so the water was washing like this. So for the fall garden, we decided we would come and we would put the rows in so that they ran like this. And I had kind of like a trench effect for the winter, so that they were mounded rows, but I didn't do that for the summer. But the water washes through the rows, and it keeps the water from doing that terrace effect, and it doesn't seem to wash out the plants as bad being planted this way. So that's an improvement that I made. I just planted these watermelon seeds last week at some point. I'm really not sure. And I just posted a short about it. So these are the tiny little icebox watermelons. I don't even remember. I think they're sweetie pies or a variety of like that. And then we have the cantaloupes, and then I did Kajari melons. And so you'll see that these are just really starting to pop up. And for whatever reason, the seeds that I had, I think the cantaloupe were older seeds, so I went and bought a new pack of seeds. So I'm going to replace these few that did not pop up. The watermelons that didn't pop up, I'm not really worried about it, but we will replace those seeds today and get that row nice and filled in. So this is my first year using this black weed barrier fabric, and so far I like it. The watermelons are very viney, and so it's very hard to pick weeds between all of the watermelons. So that's why I went with the black weed barrier fabric for this section. These are our potato plants. This first one is the red Viking potato, and then these next three are the Yukon Gold potatoes. I'm not healing mine. These are determinate varieties of potatoes, and I'm not going to get anything out of healing them. So I've decided to go the easy route and not heal my potatoes, and they should all produce potatoes just at the bottom of the plant. So as long as there's nothing green poking out of the top, like this one's starting to break the soil, so I'll probably come in and add some soil to it. But as long as I don't see anything like that, I am not going to add any soil or anything like that to these. I'm just going to weed them and wait it out. I came in and heavily harvested collard greens. These are collard greens that have held on. They're doing really well even with the little bit of heat that we have had. Next week it cools off again, so I'm just going to keep leaving these as long as they'll keep producing. It is kind of close to this tomato row, but it'll eventually come out and it won't matter. Once I harvest the potatoes and the collard greens, I'm going to come in and fill all of this in with bush beans, so for canning. This first row, these are so big, and I'm so proud of these. These are homestead tomatoes, and I haven't lost any of these. They actually need to be tied up. I'm waiting on my tomato string to get here, but these are homestead tomatoes, and they took off. The next row I have are the next two rows are Roma tomatoes, and they're doing just as well. Like this one's probably about the same size. This row, some of these are a little bit smaller, and it could just be that I had smaller plants that I had started. I did lose one of these, and I'm typically one of those who goes and buys one to put in because it annoys me for all the rows not to be full, but this year I'm going to let it go. I might come in and put like a marigold or something just to kind of deter pests, but I'm going to let it go, and I'm not going to replace the ones that I lost. I only lost 3. So this is a row of Bonnie Best, and so they're doing really well as well. And actually these end ones are Mountain Merit. So Bonnie Best and Mountain Merit on this row. And then my final 2 rows are just whatever I had left. There's some Homestead, there's some Florida 91, there's some Romas. These I started a little bit later than the others, so you'll notice that they're a little bit smaller. And I ended up losing, well, I thought I lost one. It looks like it's gonna come back. It's teeny and looks a little bit diseased, but maybe it's gonna come back. Anyway, so maybe I ended up only losing 2. So this is just a mix of tomatoes, and I definitely lost that one. Like there's nothing there. So, but I'm not gonna worry about it this year and fill in. So that is my tomato rows. I had somebody ask me in another video what in the world the pavers are for, and it's simply just to hold my soaker hoses in place when I was pulling them, because I like to pull them nice and tight so they're nice and straight around the plants. So the pavers are simply just to hold my soaker hoses down when I first put them down, and they were from another project, so I didn't have to invest in those. This row is my pepper row, and they're still so small I don't even know if you can see them, but these are the Sugar Rush peach peppers and the pumpkin spice peppers. These are all from Baker Creek. And the lemon spice pepper. And then these are pepperoncinis that I got from Eden Brothers, I think. My daughter wanted to try and make pepperoncinis like Olive Garden. She doesn't really like the banana peppers like she likes the pepperoncini. So I found these seeds at Eden Brothers and we're going to try them. So this next section will end up being a pumpkin patch, and I can show you which ones I have planted. It is still some cabbage rows left from the fall garden because I had to start them over in, I usually start them in September. The goats ate the garden, and I think I replanted in November. So they're just now getting to be nice size heads. And yesterday I came out to check on them, and I noticed that, let's see, I pulled some yesterday to feed to the goats. Let's see if I can find one. So we got a bunch of rain over the weekend, and I don't know if that mixed with the heat caused them to start splitting. So we might still be able to eat. No, I think it's completely splitted. I think it's completely split all the way through. So these are probably, I'm going to pull this one, and I'm actually going to use it for dinner tonight, and I'll post a short on what I cook for dinner. But so I'm pretty much probably going to have to pull these. These are probably pretty much done. So in this, I have a couple marigolds spaced out because this is my pumpkin patch, and I have 2 Seminole pumpkins started, and then I have some sugar pie pumpkins started. We love pumpkin pie stuff. I can the pumpkin, so I wanted smaller pumpkins that I can use for canning and for pumpkin pies and pumpkin muffins and things like that. They'll be shelf stable for a while, but here in Florida we don't really have cellars and cold storage, so I do usually end up having to can all of the pumpkin and stuff like that. I have 2 rows of okra seeds planted, but they haven't even germinated yet. I think I planted them like 2 days ago. So I have Heavy Hitter and Louisiana Long Pod that will eventually pop through and sprout. Actually, as I say that, I think 1 seed, yeah, I see 1 seed that's already germinated. So 2 seeds, 3 seeds. So the Heavy Hitter has actually already started sprouting. So we'll have okra plants to show the next time as well. Lost tomatillos, and I'm waiting on my garden string because tomatillos are really hard to contain. But so that is the tomatillo row. I planted them on the end because pests love them, especially leaf-footed bugs. These are all of my cut flower gardens. I have ranunculus and anemones and lilies in this back one. I have snapdragons and cosmos in this one because I think as the snapdragons start to die out, the cosmos will be up. I have zinnias in this bed and some weeds. I have zinnias in this bed. I have daisies in this bed that are starting to pop up, and I have sunflowers in this bed and rudbeckia. I wanted to be a flower farmer this year, but my main goal has always been to produce food, so I haven't been spending as much time worrying about the cut flowers as I thought I was going to. It was a good idea during the winter, but not so much of a good idea now. Of course, I also have blueberry bushes planted, mulberry bushes, blackberry vines, grapevines. I have a fig tree that I don't think survived the snow, so I got to go look for a replacement for that. It's one that a friend gave me, and it has struggled every year to come back, and like the whole plant dies every year and then it starts off at the bottom again. So I think it's time to just pull it and completely replace it. We have lemon and satsuma and grapefruit trees that are in bloom. And my kids started a little garden this year. It's sprouted. It has a lot of cut flowers in it. So that's what all we have going on right now. I have the strawberry and the asparagus beds as well. So there's always a lot going on, and y'all let me know what y'all want to see. I will update y'all when everything is nice and green. I'm gonna go get some fish emulsion and fertilize these peppers, tomatoes, and that one little pitiful zucchini plant. And I will see y'all next time. Hopefully next time we have something to harvest besides collard greens and cabbage. So I'm going to post a short today of what I do with the cabbage and how I use all of my homestead foods. So y'all be sure to check that out, and I will see y'all next time.